In our modern day lives, we take a lot for granted. When you hit that light switch, the lights come on and the toaster starts working. When you go to the kitchen sink, you get clean, safe drinking water. But there's a lot that has to go on behind the scenes in order to take things for granted. For example, your trash.
You fill up the garbage can in your kitchen, and when it's full, you take it outside and put it in that big black garbage can. And then the garbage truck comes by once a week and picks it up and takes it to the landfill. Easy, right? Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Every day we get between 400 and 600 tons.
400 and 600 tons.
So 1 ton is 2,000 pounds, for those that don't know, and we get up to 600 tons every single day.
But to be fair, I mean, this isn't just Rapid City residents here.
Correct.
This is trash from all around the region?
Yes, yep, so we are a regional landfill. So we get in from over to New Underwood and Faith, and we go north, we get south, Keystone, Hill City. We really get the entire Black Hills area.
And just to give our viewers an idea of what we're talking about, we're not just one hole for the landfill. You call them cells, first of all. And then how many cells do you have in this area?
So we'll have up to 19 cells in this area. This right here is cell 18. So we've already seen quite a population burst. Even in just the last few years, we've noticed our tonnage has upticked by crazy amounts. So to accommodate that, we do still have land on our property that we can use for future cells. Eventually, way down the road, we will run out of land. We'll have to move somewhere. But for now, we have a sustainability coordinator that the city's going to be hiring soon. So we're really going to partner up with them and try and educate and encourage people to recycle so that we can divert from the waste that's coming up here.
The job to recycle or divert materials from the landfill is another huge job. And what the landfill can recycle depends on market forces. If there's no market for a certain type of recyclable material, it just goes right back in the landfill.
So this is where all the recycles come in and get dumped. All the cardboard comes in and gets dumped. This pile back here is garbage, the bulky material that we're gonna grind down. That's what this guy is doing. So it's easier to compact up in the landfill. We can squish it down a lot better than it comes in when it's in those big pieces.
So you've got the recyclables, but within the recyclables that are brought in is just garbage. So you have to separate that.
All of this will be hand sorted. Cardboard and that entire recycling pile will be hand sorted.
A lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
So it comes in over here, sorted over there, then it's filtered over here to be separated and
And that's kind of a pre-sort to get some garbage things out. That pod down there is where we really do all the sorting.
Okay.
So down there is where all your plastics are going to be. Plastic and aluminum is what's going to be on the belt at that point. So there's 4 to 6 people in that pod. You're taking off water bottles, I'm taking off milk jugs. They're taking off your number 2 colored.
Okay.
So everyone's picking off something different and they get separated into cages.
again by hand.
By hand.
Okay.
And then at the very end, there's what we call an eddy current. And it's just this bolt of electricity and negative charge that will pop the aluminum can across. So everything that's rejected, so we call it rejected because maybe it skipped this, they're sending all the plastics through, but right now we're only selling 1 and 2s. So we still have 3 through 7 plastics that are coming in, but no one's buying them right now. So those are getting rejected. So those are gonna fall off. Your aluminum cans are gonna skip across. And then the aluminum cans, once again, they're gonna so at this point there's only aluminum cans in the crate, but they gotta go through because they have to pull out all the plastic straws that are still in your cans. So if we send those plastic straws in, it's no longer just a pure aluminum bale. It's aluminum and plastic. They don't like that. That's contamination. So we gotta go through and pull out all the plastic straws.
I'm amazed. I'm just simply amazed.
I wish you could see it going. It's actually quite cool.
Yeah.
So this is our baling room. So what happens is, this is kind of part of our cardboard stash. We'll dump material, we'll dump one of those cages into right here. It'll go up the belt. This machine will spit out this nice little cube. It'll crush everything and compact it into these cubes. And then we'll walk outside and I'll show you, but we have lines of the cubes that we'll just load up a semi and then it goes on its way.
And again, this is all diversion. You don't call it recycling, you're calling it diversion.
Yep. So all of this, we're diverting from the landfill. It's not going up there.
And this stuff doesn't break down.
Nope, it
So,
does not.
Yeah.
And that's huge too.
Yeah.
Some people think we sort through the garbage, and we don't. So if it comes in on a garbage truck, it heads straight to the pit. We don't touch it, we don't look at it at all. Some people think we sort through and pull out the plastic bottles.
So a lot of the recyclable stuff goes right to the
Yep,
pit.
if you throw your plastic bottle away in your garbage, it has no chance of even seeing any of our recycling line. It will go straight up there.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Remember that mountain of cardboard that was waiting to be recycled? Well, it all has to be shredded and returned to the landfill because there's no market for cardboard right now. And they hope that changes soon. Water is essential for our daily lives. We drink it, we bathe in it, and we wash our clothes with it. Once again, we take it for granted. But have you ever stopped to think about what it takes to get that water to your house and make it safe to drink?
You know, the unique thing about the water division here is, we manage water all the way from Pactola to your drinking faucet. So we have over 52 staff in the water division alone. We have a dam tender at Pactola that manages releases to our operators here that treat water. We have a distribution crew that does all of the distribution work. They make sure that the fire hydrants work, that the leaks are repaired. And we have a metering crew that makes sure that water gets to people's homes.
So not only are you sending drinking water to people's homes, but fire plugs and things like that?
Correct. So
Okay.
we're responsible to make sure that there's proper fire flows and fire protection in the community.
Okay. So you mentioned Pactola Reservoir. The drinking water that comes into our homes comes from Rapid Creek, and where else? There's another source.
So we have, Jackson Springs here is from Spring-fed source. We also have 7 different wells throughout town in the Madison Aquifer. So we have a balance of surface water, spring water, and groundwater.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of reports on the news about, aquifers, groundwater supplies, wells drying up, especially in the southwest part of the country. Are we facing anything like that here in West 605?
No, so the South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources has pretty strict guidelines to make sure that we're not over appropriating groundwater sources. So they make sure there's proper studies before you start using a well to make sure that there's adequate water supplies for that.
Okay. Well, I'm very intrigued by what's going on behind us. Can we take a look and see and talk a little bit more about the whole process?
Definitely.
Okay, let's do that.
How much water do you pump out of this facility a day?
So this plant on average runs about 8 million gallons a day.
8 million gallons a day.
Correct.
And does it change during the seasons or what?
So this plant stays pretty consistent with 8 million gallons per day, but right now in the winter time in Rapid City, we're using about 8 million gallons a day. So this plant runs most of the town. But as we start getting into irrigation season in the spring and summer, our use gets up to about 24 million gallons per day. And so we start using other sources, including our wells, and then also Mountain View water treatment plant, which we typically turn on just for the summer.
So let me make sure I heard you correctly. The water that comes from this facility is used for drinking, for fire hydrants, putting out fires, and for irrigation for farmers. Everything.
Not for farmers. So
Not
it's
for
used
farmers.
For irrigation for people's yards and for
Okay.
game fields, parks, golf courses.
So does the amount that you produce and send out through the system go up during the summertime when, we've got more kids outside doing their thing, we have tourists here, that sort of thing?
Yes, so in the summertime, that's where we get that increased usage at 24 million gallons per day approximately.
No good.
So about a threefold increase.
You've got to know, you've got to be aware of the fact that we've got a lot more people moving into the area here with what's happening with Ellsworth Air Force Base. How do you plan to meet the increase in demand for that?
So we typically have our engineering process that's going to estimate our population trends. And so those processes are started years before the need occurs. So we're constantly in our process of making sure we have adequate infrastructure. Right now we have 7 wells, but we've got 2 wells that are hopefully going to be coming online in the next 5 years. And then we're looking at some potential upgrades in the future for the Mountain View treatment plant, possible replacement, and possibly another surface water too.
Okay, so you're already looking down that road and
Yes,
making plans.
correct.
All right.
So there's the water that's coming into your home, but what about the water that's going out? That all ends up at the Rapid City Wastewater Treatment Plant.
As the water comes into the wastewater plant from all the miles of collection pipes that we have to measure the flow. And so this is raw wastewater that's coming into the plant. And when people think of wastewater, they think, oh, this is horribly dirty, but frankly, there's only about 0.1% of the material that's in wastewater that is the actual pollutants. And so that's the needle in the haystack that we have to pull out and try to clean out of the water.
0.1%.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And so it's what you might imagine comes into a wastewater plant. It's the things that we excrete as human beings. It's miscellaneous items that people feel that they can put down the drain. Some of the issues we have are things like fats, oils, and grease. They will plug up pipes and do those kind of things, and they can cause damage to equipment downstream. Wipes like baby wipes and makeup wipes, those type of things. It's been a huge issue over the last several years because they say they're flushable. Well, as we say, a lot of things are flushable. That doesn't mean they break down.
Yeah.
And so those materials can clog up pumps and pipes, and they cause backup into homes and those type of things. And that's why we've had some campaigns over the years asking people not to flush those materials. Basically, it's flushing toilet paper. That's what you can put down the drain. And we also take flows not only from homes, but we take flows from industries. And so industries use water in their processes, and so then we have to clean that water as well. Industries are pretty heavily regulated though. They have to do most of the cleanup themselves before it can be discharged. But that is one of our functions, is to monitor those industries and make sure that they're doing their part in the cleanup.
All right, I've got a very dumb question to ask.
Sure.
I assume that the amount of wastewater you deal with on a daily basis doesn't really change that much day to day. But I was going to say, maybe it's different during the Super Bowl or something like that.
You're actually right. It doesn't change much. We process about 8.5 million gallons of wastewater a day that comes through the treatment facility. We do see spikes in wastewater flows that relate to human activities, such as the Super Bowl. There's actually a group out there that study what's called sewer sociology, that they look at the flows compared to human events, such as when it's a commercial break at the Super Bowl, and they can actually detect that on flow meters and know that, okay, this is when people, the activities are contributing to the waste stream. So from here, we go to a mechanical process. It's called pre-treatment. And so at that point, we use some screening devices that take out the larger debris. And so some of those wipes we talked about, It can be everything from sticks to license plates to children's toys, you name it. We've had some really odd things.
I was going to ask you, what is the weirdest thing you've found here that people have just somehow flushed down the toilet?
Well, the oddest thing in most recent memory is it was last near Halloween, we had a full-size pumpkin came through. We can't figure out how that managed to come through, but it did.
All right.
Yeah, and so it's just odd flotsam and jetsam that society generates.
All right.
We found a couch one time in a manhole, but that's a totally different story.
Okay.
So, we're in the process of probably one of the largest expenditures in the city's history for capital improvements.
Okay.
And so have roughly a $140 million project going on out here, that we are building new processes, and a lot of the old treatment processes that we have will be going away. We will actually demo a lot of the old processes from the original 67
When
plant.
you say old processes, what are you talking about?
Okay, so when the plant was built back in the 1960s, all that people really worried about was getting the solids out of the wastewater. So in other words, they would take the sand, gravel, those type of things, and then organics, and we call organics BOD, biochemical oxygen demand. So we removed those two things. As time has gone on though, and the science has improved, and we understand how the wastes impact, our rivers, our streams, and those type of things, they've discovered that there are other nutrients in the wastewater that can cause equally big problems to the water. So some of those would be ammonia. Ammonia is generated in the waste breaking down, and so that material has to be removed.
At this facility, the water isn't treated with chemicals and filters. It's treated with bacteria, water filtration, and then disinfected with ultraviolet light. It also has to meet strict EPA standards, so on-site lab testing is always going on as well. Then the cleaned up water is released back into Rapid Creek. One of the most commonly used things in your home is electricity. When you flip that switch, you naturally assume the lights will go on. When you push that button, you expect the appliance to work. But these days, our nation's power grid has been under scrutiny, especially after major storms. Power can be out for days, maybe even weeks at a time. Severe weather can also impact the West 605 area, something that Mark Ayer of Black Hills Energy knows very well.
One thing we do is we benchmark ourselves against other utilities, looking at outage reliability metrics.
What do you mean benchmark?
So we look at our statistics, how often we have service on, service interruptions, things like that, and then we compare ourselves to other utilities across the nation.
Okay.
And so consistently, we're in the top quartile for reliability. Last year for 2022 as an example, our average customer was out of power 63 minutes. If you think of all the hours a year for the entire year.
That's an hour a year. That's not too shabby.
Yeah. So certainly there's a lot that goes into that to make that happen, but something that we're proud of, keeping the lights on for our customers, and again, lots to go on behind the scenes to make that happen.
Well, back to the big picture. When I refer to the criticism of the power grid, it usually comes in the aftermath of a hurricane or something like that. Now, here in South Dakota, thankfully, we don't have to deal with too many hurricanes, but we've got some pretty gusty winds going on, and we've got severe weather in the form of hail and that sort of thing. How do you deal with those?
Yeah, there's tornadoes, ice storms. One thing that could be problematic for the electric grid here is ice storms, or if you have a kind of a late spring storm after the leaves, all the trees have leaves on it, things like that. So really it takes a lot of planning, years and years of planning, obviously, to build a power line or do things like that. Takes time to plan. So we start thinking about that reliability long before a storm hits. Some key things here to improve reliability is vegetation management, so making sure the right-of-ways are cleared.
That means trees?
Yeah,
and-
trees,
Okay.
any kind of vegetation there. And so we have a 4-year cycle where every 4 years we trim the vegetation back out of that right away. And, we see, the direct result of that when you have an ice storm or, high winds, not as many trees are able to, cause service interruptions for customers. As an example, one of the things we do to improve reliability, reclosures or self-operating devices like breakers. So essentially 95+% of faults we'll see on a line are transitory, meaning they're instantaneous, like a wind will slap a line together, or a tree branch will fall in line, but it won't stay, it'll fall out. So instead of like just having a fuse that would open up and have customers out of power, we put electronic devices like reclosers on the line that can instantly sense an inrush of current. It'll open the line for a split second and then close it back in and see if the fault is cleared. If it does, your lights just blink and then they stay on. The fault is cleared, and it doesn't cause an outage. In the past, if it was just a fuse, it would open that fuse up. A troubleman or somebody would have to come out, replace the fuse. You could be out for a half hour to an hour. Now, you might blink 2 times, the fault clears, and the power stays on. It truly is years of planning, to get a generation resource online, and then it's a ton of work by our generation team to keep those units online, available, and be able to meet the demand of our customers. So, as demand increases, making sure that we've got the capacity to do that. Then transporting that across hundreds of miles of high voltage transmission lines down to local substations where the voltage is cut. And then we, from there distribute, through thousands of miles of both overhead, underground distribution power lines, to every business and home. And so it's a very broad and complex network.
There's a lot of brain power, there's a lot of manpower, and a lot of infrastructure behind just flipping that light switch on.
Yeah, yep.
Water, electricity, garbage. The fact that you can take all these things for granted means a lot of people are working hard behind the scenes to make sure it all happens that way in West 605.